Hello, my name is Emma Mercer, and I live in Georgetown, a small neighborhood located on the south side of Seattle, Washington. I moved to Georgetown with my father, Lance, 5 years ago, and I have lived here ever since. Recently, I started to take a closer notice to the community and saw how tight-knit everyone was. It was a place where everyone looked out for each other. After doing a small amount of research, I discovered Georgetown is one of Seattle's oldest neighborhoods. I became intrigued and was determined to investigate more on its community as well as its history. So I decided to sit down and talk to a couple people around me, starting off with someone closest to home, my dad, Lance Mercer. What brought you to Georgetown?
The first thing that I noticed about Georgetown was that there was a lot of the artists, more of the blue-collar punk rock artists had moved south from downtown Seattle, mainly because the rent was cheap, but also because there was a lot of still industrial, cool spaces that they could work out of without having a huge overhead. But the main part about it was the people, and they were doing the same kind of art and work that I was doing. The other thing about Georgetown I liked a lot was the environment itself was very reminiscent of like Brooklyn or someplace in New York, just because of all the brick. There used to be that big brick wall along Airport Way that was really nice. It didn't look like anything else in Seattle.
Next, I decided to take the trip down a few blocks to the Arts and Cultural Center to hear what the owner and creator Angelina Vitale-Chamberlain thoughts about Georgetown were.
What brought you to Georgetown?
The airplanes. Actually, I came here first 13 years ago, and there wasn't as much activity here yet. It was still a little rough around the edges. It still is today, but in different ways. And because it was affordable space to have an artist studio and kind of make my art and not be disturbed too much.
My final stop was to visit the Grrls Grocery, a small home-run store in the neighborhood, and talk to the owner, Alan Phillips.
Back in the 90s, my wife and I were looking to buy a house. We were tired of renting, and Georgetown was still affordable. You could still get a house for under $100,000 here, though frankly I think there are only 2 of them left at that point. We got one of them. So we lived down the street from here for about 8.5, 9 years before we sold that house to purchase this building and reopen the store.
This building that the Art Center is presently located in is called Bertoldi Hall, and it was originally a dance hall. And it has a lot of other uses that it was since 1904 when it was built. It was a boxing ring, and it was a union hall, and all sorts of other slightly nefarious stuff, but mostly good. And then Georgetown itself is just, there's a lot of really beautiful historical buildings, and I personally feel comfortable in older buildings and older houses, so that's kind of fun thing about the neighborhood. It kind of has an East Coast feel to it, and for me, it's a place where people are interested in the history of Georgetown too. The community. There's a lot of community members that have been here forever, and they have had houses since the beginning of time, so it seems, and so there's a really strong sense of community, not only with the artists but with other people who've been living here and working here for a long time.
Yeah, I can tell you when Georgetown incorporated as a city. Although the area was generally already referred to as Georgetown before it was incorporated as a city. There were a lot of beer breweries in Georgetown. Seattle Malting and Brewing, the most famous. There was a strong temperance movement in the city of Seattle, and it was very likely that Seattle could ban alcohol in the early 1900s. This was of concern to the brewery operators who operated in this area. So, in order to protect themselves in case this happened, the brewery owners financed a special election and asked the voters if they would like to incorporate as their own city.
I don't know as much as I probably should, and I've retained some of it, but what I do know about Georgetown's history is that Seattle was developed south to north, but I know that Georgetown and Ballard were the two places that were separated from the actual county of Seattle, I think. So Prohibition wasn't affected down here, so people could drink and gamble in Georgetown, and there was a lot of fights, bar fights, and but I also know that there was a lot of the Duwamish tribe, the Duwamish Indians were settled down here, which included Chief Self, Seattle's namesake. So there was a lot more pioneers in the Georgetown area interacting with the natives.
Last but not least, what are your hopes for the growth of the community in Georgetown for the future?
What I would like to see is, I'd like to see the arts continue to be supported, safety continue to be supported in Georgetown with police efforts. Also, I'd like to see more governmental interest in this. When I say government, I mean city government. Our mayor seems to be interested in Georgetown and the south end of Seattle, which I think is really good because I think it was neglected for far too long.
Well, I hope it survives in the long run. I'm optimistic that it will, just based on the fact that the people who live here like living here, and they're bound and determined to not to go anywhere, or for the neighborhood not to go anywhere.
An ice cream parlor. They need to have a Menchie's down here. Menchie's, Bed Bath & Beyond, Target. There's great restaurants. There's really good, everybody knows each other. I have to say, it's the only place I've lived in Seattle where I've felt as safe as I do, and where people are really supportive and kind of watch out for each other without being really creepy, like going into your house and stuff when, knocking on your door. But it feels really safe. Yeah, it feels really good. I actually love living in Georgetown right now.
After learning more about the place I live, I found how much I truly appreciate it and all it has to offer. I can walk down the streets feeling safe and knowing the people I pass are watching out for me as well as everyone else. Next time someone asks me about my home, I can tell them with a smile, I live in Georgetown, where arts, independence, and community are important. And maybe I'll throw in some history just to impress them with my newfound knowledge.